The VO Meter, measuring your voiceover progress. Whether you're a veteran voice actor, just starting out, or don't even know how to set a level, we're here to help you avoid the pitfalls along your voiceover path to success. The VO Meter is brought to you by Voice Actor Websites, Voice 123, Studio Bricks, Global Voice Acting Academy, JMC Demos, and Sennheiser. The VO Meter is produced in part using Source Connect, made by source-elements.com. And now your hosts, Paul Stefano and Sean Daly.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 106 of the VO Meter.
Measuring your voice-over progress.
Today we're going to talk with voice actor Andrew Lander, who's a longtime friend of mine. We've been talking with each other since we were studying VO. He kind of transitioned from more straight-laced VO work, like commercial and corporate narration, to more character-based projects, and why you should consider doing that too.
Yes, and thank you to Sean for conducting the interview solo. I was unable to attend due to some scheduling conflicts. We had to actually reschedule several times due to both Sean, my, and Andrew's schedule. And in the end, I had to do a live event. I think it was a lacrosse game. So Sean conducted the interview swimmingly by himself. I just listened to it, and great job, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. No, I had a lot of fun doing it. We'll get to Andrew's interview in just a moment, but before that, it's time for some VO Meter reference levels.
VoiceOver Extra brings you the VO Meter reference levels. Seriously, guys, that's the best you could come up with? Hey, it's your show.
Okay, so how have things been going for you, Sean? We haven't talked in quite a while, so I'm interested to see what you've been up to.
It's been a while. Yeah. I mean, where to start? Rachel and I got sick for a month. We had a couple of sinus infections and ear infections. It was unpleasant. And then our cats got sick, so we had to take care of them. And then luckily I got to go on vacation for a little bit for my brother's 40th birthday in Vegas. Other than that, though, I've still been working on with my regular e-learning clients and my corporate narration clients. I did a fun, what you might call, corporate anthem for Tsingtao Brewery out of China. It's one of my favorite lagers, actually. And
Really?
Yeah, no, I like Tsingtao a lot.
I don't know that one.
No, it's just light and crisp. Comes in a green bottle.
Okay.
But it's really good. And it was talking about how they actually increased the patronage for a lot of local restaurants by partnering with Tsingtao and having a social media campaign. So it was really fun to do that. Some fun GVA developments. We're steadily progressing to our new big website update. We've been working on this for quite a few months now. Really excited about that. And we also have several new coaches joining our coaching roster.
Such as?
I
You
was waiting for it. Yeah. But I just got to work with Kristen Paiva of Paiva Productions. He's a former casting director for such great companies as Disney and Nickelodeon. We have a new dialect coach, Doug Honoroff, who has done dialect coaching for over 400 movies and other features. And we're also going to be working with Steve Pogach of SiriusXM and Pandora. He handles all of the voice operations for them. Really happy growing the membership, growing our roster, and hopefully having a bright and shiny website to show people in the near future.
That's awesome. I didn't know about most of those. I did my first workout in a few months a couple of weeks ago with one of the old guard, with Christina Malizia, and that was fantastic. So I'm looking forward to working with some of the new coaches as well.
Awesome. Well, what's going on in your VO world?
For straight voicing, kind of slow, actually. And I picked up the pace with live announcing, which is always cool. And I've done a couple of things for voicing. I guess the most notable is I mentioned last time I did this job for a big drink company in Mexico. So now I just did a commercial for Little Caesars, also in Mexico. It's like the line from Despicable Me, where he's talking about all the accomplishments of the things he's stolen. He said, "We stole the Eiffel Tower," the Vegas one. And then he says, "And the Empire State Building, also Vegas." So it's like big drink company in Mexico, Little Caesars commercial, also Mexico. But I'm still grateful for the work and happy to have done that. And I think that's going to be a good one when it comes out, because the premise is just hilarious in Spanish, and then when it comes out in English, hopefully it'll be just as good. And I will let people know as soon as that is out.
Paul Stefano, the David Hasselhoff of Mexico.
I think I'm slowly trending that way, and not that I'm complaining. It's pretty cool though. And then on the live announcing front, I've got a lot of lacrosse and baseball season has started, and I have kind of a big announcement on that end. I don't think I've shared this yet. I recently signed on to be the backup announcer for the Washington Nationals of Major League Baseball. So that's kind of a big step. It was kind of my dream to work for a major league team. And though I haven't done a game yet, I'm on the payroll and officially part of the organization. So hopefully soon, I don't wish any ill will on the current announcer, but if he has, a kid's soccer game or a anniversary with his wife or something, maybe I'll fill in soon and get to talk about announcing at a major league ballpark.
Very cool. I love that. It's like, we don't need anything tragic to happen to them. It could be a birthday party for all I care.
Yeah, it's like people always say to me, why don't you work for the Orioles? And a friend of the show, Adrian Robertson, who we've had on several times, I always say, no, Adrian is a good friend of mine. I don't want her to lose her job. It doesn't work that way. Just sometimes it does. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there, and I think it is a little more cutthroat than voiceover. But with Adrian being a voice actor as well, we know how we like to support each other. And as you say, a rising tide raises all boats. And I wish no ill will for any of the people I back up, because that's what I mostly do for the live announce job. There's only a few where I'm the full-time announcer, that being University of Maryland Wrestling and Volleyball, and Navy men's and women's lacrosse and volleyball, and everything else I'm a fill-in for. So I wish no ill will on any of these people that have the lead job in these sporting events.
I totally agree with you. I mean, our competition is often the people, our fellow creative collaborators. So we want them all to work right.
So with that, one thing I want to talk about is how there has been a slowdown for me, at least, excuse me while I burp up my lunch. There has been a slowdown for me, at least, in a lot of the traditional voicing work that I've done in the past, e-learning clients, commercials. And I'm wondering if it's been the same for you, and if our listeners can maybe comment and say if they're experiencing the same thing. I have noticed some rumblings on social media about how it's slow, and a lot of people doing sort of temperature checks to the social media world and saying, "Is it me?
Exactly. Do I suck? No, the children who are wrong." But
I mean, you might suck. There's there's ways to find out. But for me, it's generally been slow this last couple of months. I'm a little worried, but that's why I'm leaning so far into the live announcing, and hopefully that'll carry me over.
Mm-hmm. No, totally. And I want to say, I'm just jealous you get out of the house, man. I mean, I will say, though, like, after I was gone in Vegas for like 4 days celebrating my brother's birthday, and I really missed my job. It was funny. I was like, it was nice for like a day or two just to like completely check out from anything VO related. But then, of course, I still had a USB mic with me. Of course, I still recorded an audition for a client. But by the time it was over, I was really itching to get back to the booth and get back to work. And I was just like, okay, this is something to be grateful about.
Along that note, before we veer off into to the topic I just introduced, I forgot to mention I went to the Reed Awards 2 weeks ago, which is the award ceremony for campaigns and elections. And it's all about media and commercials and advertising related specifically to political campaigns. So I've gone to their conferences the last couple of quarters, sponsored by Lisa Ristow from Impressive Talent. She sent me as a representative of the agency. And then I went to the awards ceremony, which was last week. And while her agency didn't win any awards, a lot of our friends did, and ended up being almost like a mini voiceover conference, because I was there with Jim Michael Collins and Erica J and Bobby Maxwell and Christy Bowen. So a lot of VO friends. I met some new ones even, like Jay Walton from Sunspots and Janet Walton from Sunspots, and almost had like a mini VO con within the Reed Awards. So that was a fantastic event. It was in Charleston, South Carolina, and thanks to Lisa for sending me to represent Impressive Talent.
Very cool. So back to what we were talking about before I derailed our conversation. I sort of implied it during the current events section, but like, aside from my regular clients, my return clients that I thankfully get each month, I haven't gotten a lot of new clients. So, and we were talking before we hit record today, I was doing these ESL news articles for English language learners, and we worked together for about 7 years, but he has decided to go and use AI for all of his voiceovers, for my voiceovers, for his voiceovers, and admittedly, since this was non-paying work, I can sympathize. I mean, he's saving 4 hours of work for every little 5-minute file that we did together. So I can definitely see the benefit there. But that said, it is disconcerting, right? I mean, we're already seeing whispers or rumblings of people who are losing jobs. I've seen people like, say, Fiverr Talent or talent on some of the online casting sites like Voices or Voice 123 complain that they are not getting as many opportunities now. And so it seems like the days of AI are quickly coming, if not already here.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's also a lot of audiobooks being made that way too, including by Amazon themselves. They have a whole AI voice program that they are putting books into themselves, which is just taking money away from narrators. So it is scary. I think it'll settle out eventually, and I think if we focus on the things that can't be replicated by AI, at least for now, I think that's a good way to go. I think audiobooks mostly suck. I've listened to some of the AI ones. It's just over that long haul of recording, hours and hours, you can't get the nuances right with the emotion and the little things that make humans humans. I think it's back. I think there's a backlash, actually. I've seen it in some of the online reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. And then live announcing, I think, and live events are going to remain human done, because there's no way you can anticipate what's happening in a live event in order to feed it to a computer, because all these AI voices rely on input being put in, and there is no input for a baseball game. I don't know what's happening in the second inning of a baseball game before the second inning arrives. So for now, that's safe too.
Which is great. And it's just, again, I've been researching the topic, just not how it pertains to what we're doing, but like everyone, because a lot of people are at risk. But it's, in my opinion, I mean, I've heard it from greats like Pat Fraley, Katie Lee, Tanya Buchanan of Tada VoiceWorks, but it's like the genres that will be the most resistant and the most resilient to AI replacement are the ones that require the most acting, the most emotion, the most expressiveness, right? So I'm trying to change my own thinking of when I first started in VO and how I see some people try to approach it today, in that it's not about making your voice as pretty and consistent and stable as possible. A machine can do that, right? We need to learn how to better establish an emotional connection with our audience, because that's something the AI can't replicate.
Yeah, and then making it more human. So I recently saw this video that George Whittam posted about one of these influencers who purposely messes up during her testimonials or her videos.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And what do you call it? Pattern interruption. I think Jody Krangle called it pattern interruption, because it sort of takes the audience out of their trance. So like I know my 16-year-old son will watch a video and I can be talking to him about homework or sports, and he doesn't hear a word I'm saying because he's literally in a trance watching these videos. Mm-hmm. But when that pattern interruption comes up, it takes you out of it and makes you refocus. And in some cases that can be beneficial to the person doing the video, because then it reminds them what they're watching, and then they can replug their product or whatever they're trying to pitch and re-engage with the audience. So I think when we're doing auditions, those pre-reads, the pre-life for auditions, or breaking up the audition as you're going along with asides that aren't necessarily in the script, I think you're going to be huge.
Mm-hmm. Like ignoring punctuation, adding breaths or efforts, or playing with extremes and levels. There's all sorts of ways that we can make this more interesting and more human, and ultimately protect our careers. Yeah,
absolutely. By the way, speaking of George Whittam, we should give out a final shout out and thank you to George and Dan, because since we did our last episode, I believe is when they announced they are retiring from VOBS VoiceOver Body Shop. So I want to publicly thank George and Dan for their years of service, all the content they put out there. I'm fond of saying they taught me almost everything I know about voiceover, and I'm eternally grateful for all their years of content on first East West Audio Body Shop, and now the VoiceOver Body Shop. Last episode was, I think, last Monday.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they definitely go check that out. And thank you both, Dan and George, for not only giving us the confidence to record ourselves and learn about that, but also to start our own podcast. And thank you for both being gracious guests several times. It's been a pleasure, each one.
We'll try and carry the torch for now until somebody tells us we suck and we shouldn't do it anymore. I was very re-energized by Andrew's interview, though, because when you listen, you'll hear he gave us a lot of praise, mostly, in my opinion, unwarranted. But I appreciate the kudos nonetheless.
I'm all about having an attitude of gratitude, and he definitely encapsulates that. I mean, and it was very touching to know like that I had benefited him like through our conversations, through GVAA, through the podcast. It was really great. So hopefully you leave the interview feeling as positive and invigorated as we are. So unfortunately, no end in sight to this particular discussion, but I remain cautiously optimistic. I'm sure we'll return to more interesting discussions after these messages.
Studio Bricks designs and creates the highest performing portable sound isolation booths. Their professionally perfected acoustics enhances your performance and takes your recording to their maximum quality from your home studio. Forget about managing noise conflicts with your neighbors and family. Pursue your passion for voiceover on your own time and on your own terms.
Walgreens, because it's flu season, and you live in a place with doorknobs and handrails and, people.
We tried booking a vacation rental on one of those other websites. They don't always tell you everything.
The stars take it to the red carpet.
We are back live from the red carpet.
California leads the way for change in America, and so does Kamala Harris.
Rated M for mature. Claire Redfield.
And who exactly are you?
So, yeah, what hashtag should I use to describe a grown man in a tuxedo wrestling a goat?
Prior to 1933, many of them belonged to a variety of political parties that were now outlawed in Germany.
This is the story of how Q got curly. Quinn was crazy about curls. Curly fries, curly straws, curly-haired dogs.
Hey, Jay Michael here. Thanks for listening to the VO Meter podcast. It's one of my favorites. If you're looking for a great demo like the ones you just heard, check out jmcdemos.com for more information.
But before we get to that, it's time for our
questionable gear purchase.
So I actually have a confession to make, and I've done this before, so it's no secret anymore, but I've been talking to you from a new microphone this entire time.
What?
So the folks at Logitech have sent me the new Yeti GX USB mic, and I'm testing it out now. It's been on this entire time for the podcast, so you might have noticed a difference in my sound, or maybe not. That would be a good thing for them. Let me just read some of the specs off the website. It is a premium RGB gaming mic powered by LightSync and designed specifically for game streamers, combining a custom dynamic capsule with advanced software. This USB microphone rejects noise and key clicks, improves your sound, and ensures consistent high-quality audio while you stream. So that's the manufacturer gibberish on it. But the long and short of it is it's a USB microphone. It reminds me of the Yeti Nano when that was out. I think it's in that ilk. So It's about 5 inches long, 1.5 inches wide. Comes with a built-in pop filter. It's on a pedestal stand with a yoke that can also be connected to a microphone thread. Has a little adapter for that. It looks exactly like the Blue Raspberry. In fact, I just found it on the floor of the booth because I was doing an unboxing video earlier, which I'll put on YouTube. And I was like, oh, where'd this come from? And I thought it was the one from my Blue Raspberry, but I think it just fell out of the box when I was unboxing it. So same thread that they had when it was blue and making the Raspberry. So the Logitech now fully owns Blue, and they've sort of retired that name. So no more Blue Yeti, it's just Yeti. And this is the Yeti GX gaming microphone. It also has a changeable color palette through a software that they include. And you can change it to match your keyboard. So streamers like to do this. I know my son does it when he's streaming video games. They have keyboards that have adjustable RGB lights, and you can sync these to the Yeti GX to match. So that seems pretty cool. It's got an adjustable gain dial that has an auto gain feature, which I'm actually using now. So let me scream and say, la, la, la. That's not like it was clipping.
No. That's
okay,
pretty impressive.
So it's got this auto gain feature that will stop you from clipping if you do scream. Again, good for streamers if they're they're streaming their biggest Fortnite win or their Call of Duty kill, and they want to scream about it and yell, which happens a lot. If me witnessing my sons watching these streaming videos is an indication. But it can also be good for us if we're doing video game performance and need to do a dying scene or a battle cry. We can, again, scream really loud, and it won't clip because it has this auto gain feature.
I gotta say, I mean, it's obviously marketed towards like gamers and streamers and stuff, but it sounds pretty dang good.
Well, again, I'm in the studio, Bricks, so I'm in the booth.
Well,
right
obviously,
next to my normal
environment
mic.
helps, but like we've often talked that the technology has gotten so good that like you really can get more and more affordable gear that just it will certainly be good enough to start with.
Yeah, this is $149.99 retail on the Logitech website. Let me try some key clicks. I have my keyboard right here. You hearing any of that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's not going to be perfect, but it does have the dampening on the pedestal that should help a little bit to reach it.
I should be typing while you're doing VO in the first place, but I get the point.
Oh, it's a top and address mic, which is interesting. It does kind of look like you could stand up on its side. In fact, in all the pictures, it's up on its side, but it's just a single polar pattern, which I believe
it says
is
supercardioid.
Supercardioid, yeah, and it's top address. So I'm talking to the top of it now. I figured this out by default because I couldn't really find the information on whether, sort of like the original Yeti. I don't know why they don't tell you where to face the mic, but I'm talking into it like it's a radio mic, and it's about 6 inches away from my face because that's how I do it for VO. But it's definitely a top address mic, which is different from the original Yeti.
Is it a pretty lightweight mic? Because it reminds you kind of the pod mic, but that thing was a lot heavier.
No, it's much lighter. It's only maybe 1.5 pounds, if that. Very light. And that's with the pedestal on it. Without the pedestal, like on a boom, it might only be a couple ounces.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's the Logitech Yeti GX. There's another one I'm going to be reviewing soon. It's sort of their answer to the Snowball.
The Orb?
Yep, the Orb. I had that sitting in a box as well. I'll do an unboxing of that and see how it sounds and if it's any different.
Very cool. Well, funnily enough, I actually had a QGP from Logitech as well.
Really?
I finally caved and got their Logitech MX Master 3. Actually, the 3S, it's like a newer one for Mac. But I was having hand cramps from using trackpad exclusively. So I was like, even if I don't use this all the time, maybe it would be beneficial to have something for a different hand position. Within that afternoon, I felt like my wrist went ka-chunk, and then my elbow went ka-chunk, and then my shoulder went ka-chunk. So I'm like, okay, now that I've healed myself, maybe I should continue using this mouse. But anyways, for those who don't know, one of the reasons I was reticent in getting this is because it's like $100 mouse. But I found one refurbished for $60, so that's what sold me.
Probably could have gotten you one if you had asked.
Yeah. I don't know. I was desperate in pain, but
Gotcha.
but anyway, so I got that, and further improving the ergonomics of my studio, I got a refurbished steel case Leap chair. So like I had been using just a cheap like $100 Costco chair for about a year and a half, and as you might guess, I was having some bad back pain. So I finally treated myself. I spent about $600 on a refurbished chair with a 12-year warranty. They're usually $1,200, so it was about 50% off. And if I have any problems, it's got a 12-year warranty. So I'm pretty happy about that. So it's from
all ergonomic based, huh?
No, yeah, that was the theme this time for sure. Because it's been a while since I've made any major purchases, so I at least wanted it to be around a justifiable theme.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That wraps up our questionable gear purchases. We'll get right back to our interview with Andrew Lander right after this.
In these modern times, every business needs a website. When you need a website for your voice acting business, there's only one place to go. Like the name says, voiceactorwebsites.com. Their experience in this niche webmaster market gives them the ability to quickly and easily get you from concept to live online in a much shorter time. When you contact voiceactorwebsites.com, their team of experts and designers really get to know you and what your needs are. They work with you to highlight what you do. Then they create an easily navigable website for your potential clients to get the big picture of who you are and how your voice is the one for them. Plus, VoiceActorWebsites.com has other great resources, like their practice script library and other resources to help your voiceover career flourish. Don't try it yourself. Go with the pros. VoiceActorWebsites.com, where your VO website shouldn't be a pain in the you-know-what.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the interview portion of this episode of the VO Meter. Our guest today is Andrew Lander. Originally from Washington, D.C., Andrew is a SAG-eligible African-American voice actor based in Atlanta, Georgia. Currently in his 5th year pursuing voiceover, Andrew's journey didn't begin in the theater or on the radio. Rather, it began behind the podium and in the corporate world. As a child, his parents encouraged him to participate in a variety of public speaking events. Years later, he became a marketing professional in the nonprofit and real estate sectors, leading workshops on everything from community resources for low-income D.C. residents to CRMs for real estate agents. Once he discovered voiceover, this turned out to be great experience for corporate narration, explainers, and e-learning. However, his narrow focus limited him to roles such as the friendly narrator or the conversational announcer, which left more expressive and nuanced roles on the table. It wasn't until he was encouraged by his close VO colleagues and friends to play and get silly with audio theater and TikTok did he become a more well-rounded actor, expand his opportunities, and truly become the business casual voiceover. Andrew's corporate clients include brands like Ace Hardware, Purina Cat Chow, and Steakum. He's done commercials for Discover Card, Google, and Jimmy John's, as well as hundreds more commercials on SiriusXM and Pandora for brands like McDonald's, Apple, BetterHelp, Rosetta Stone, and more. And finally, you can see him get animated as Kang the Conqueror on the Marvel HQ YouTube channel, Batar in the indie animated film The Worlds Divide, and General R-Ray in the highly anticipated Sandland video game created by none other than Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball. So, without further ado, please welcome Andrew Lander to the show. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, it's going great. Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm just excited to be here.
I'm excited to see you, man. So for those of you who don't know, Andrew and I have been digital friends for a number of years.
Yes.
Maybe as long as you've been pursuing voiceover.
Yeah, it really has been that. Like I was going back through Facebook message just requests and stuff, and I've been asking you questions about gear, and you've been so helpful, not just through the podcast, but just in our back and forth, and it was really, really helpful early on, and it still is helpful, to be quite honest.
I like the cut of your jib, you know, and you're really friendly and polite when you reached out to me. I remember we had both trained with Terry Daniel, and I think you said you had seen a testimonial I had on his website, and then was that before or after you started training with GVAA?
I think it was before, and I remember. So I started training with Terry, and this was back in 2019. And then Rob Marley, he had said, who is part of Terry's group and also trains folks. He was like, "Have you listened to the VO Meter?" And I was like, "I've been listening to every other podcast, and I haven't heard of this one. Let me check it out." And it was really refreshing. And I'm not just saying that to blow smoke, but the reason is because your podcast really like all of the mistakes that you guys made over the years, the questionable gear purchases, it really broke it down so that I wouldn't have to make those mistakes.
Well, that was the whole point. I mean, we talk about this often, but our goal was to, shamelessly talk about our own mistakes, but also let people know about the other ones, the common ones that we see, right? People making, and ideally help people like you from making those mistakes. So that's awesome. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, and just to give you guys a lot more credit, it made things seem like really like realistic and down to earth, because I think when I started listening, I started at episode 1, and I think you were in like year 5 of your journey, and just hearing how like you went from overseas to then to back over here, and like just listening to like you doing e-learning and corporate narration and things like that, I was like, oh man, all this stuff seems like really achievable, because sometimes if you were to watch like I don't know, like a movie on voiceover, or maybe sometimes you see this person who's like, oh, you don't have to have a deep and resonant and rich and delicious voice like me, but you can do voiceover. And it's like, well, you know, that's like saying like some muscly dude in the gym being like, yeah, you could be like me. And it's like, well, clearly you have some genetic benefits that are allowing you to do this, you know, and this isn't to, you know, knock you guys at all, but like you guys made it seem like attainable because you're like everyday blue collar, salt of the earth, you know, good old fashioned people. And that to me was like the best thing that I could ever hear. You know?
That's awesome. And you're right. I mean, I see it all the time. People just being overwhelmed with this massive elephant that is the VO industry and not sure where to take a bite or how much at a time, you know? Mm-hmm. And I get it. When you have someone like maybe a celebrity or someone who has been in the industry for decades telling you how they did it, it can feel like a pipe dream.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy to hear that my experience was personally relevant to you because of the areas that we're most interested in. So at what point did you transition from training for voiceover to actually pursuing paid work?
That's a good question. So I started in like June of 2019, like actually piecing together like what voiceover meant as a career. And then I spent a few months just listening to, like I said, to podcasts, and I started training around September. And then it was around, maybe it was a bit too early. It was around November where I thought, you know, maybe I could give it a shot because I had been practicing like every day, not just doing, you know, coaching 1 week, not doing anything, and then coaching like a month later or a week later. It was like an obsession, like every single day. So I was like, I think I've built up enough, and also getting a little bit of confidence from my coach who said, yeah, you know, I think you're marketable at this point, but let's keep working on things before your demo. So, you know, I went on Reddit in November, and I booked a narration for a video game demo, like a very short one that has never seen the light of day. I don't know where it is. It was made by someone in like Eastern Europe, but, you know, it was something. But I really didn't start getting going until the following year in 2020 when my commercial demo was made. I think I maybe had booked one or two things before then because I had my website up with just, I think it was maybe, I don't know if it was samples or something like that, but it was around April when I had gotten my commercial demo, and that's when things really took off. And also when the world blew up, you know?
Absolutely. So, like many people, you use that opportunity to kind of buckle down on this potential side hustle and realize its potential, if you will.
Yeah. It was a bunch of terrible things that really made things turn out to be good for remote voiceover. At that time, I was in Montgomery, Alabama, and I was freaking out a little bit because I said, well, I'm not in New York, and I'm not in Chicago, and I'm certainly not in LA. Montgomery, Alabama, you know, whenever you put that file name on your audition and they want you to put the acronym for your city, no one's going to know what, you know, MONT is or MGY or whatever Montgomery is going to be, you know. So I really didn't think that I would have the opportunity to do voiceover. But like I said, when I was listening to this podcast, I remember Sean, you and Paul had said it would be a good idea to have a home studio. And this was before the pandemic, you know. And so I said, okay, well, maybe it would work out if I had that. And it did. And so, as you know, everyone had to stay inside. People had to close their studios. So it really opened things up for folks who were already prepared, like us. The other thing that happened around that time was the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm. And you know, as you know, with the death of George Floyd and, you know, the protests and, you know, the subsequent, we need to have messaging that speaks to this event. Wait a minute, we need to have messaging that is spoken by Black actors. Wait a minute, we don't have anybody on our roster. Uh-oh, what do we do? Or we have very few people on our roster. Let's blast out an email or just let it be known that we need to have black actors who at least have a commercial demo. And it was like at that time that I had just gotten my commercial demo, that I already knew that I had a home setup. And so my hand went up, and it just happened to be a very opportune time to be set up in the industry in that way.
So you were the perfect candidate during a perfect storm of events, it seems.
Yes, very, very lucky indeed.
Well, that's awesome. Well, since we're on the topic of home studio, it's funny to hear that now, because here he's in this, like, multi-figure booth with this, like, Sennheiser 416. He's become quite the gear hound based on our conversations. So what are you working with now? And how has that changed since when you started?
So, I mean, I'm working with a Studio Bricks VO Edition, the One Plus, and it's got all the bells and whistles and the table and the everything, and I got the 416. But I started with I called it like a hobbit hole, because what I did was, so my wife, she's a great photographer. She does it on the side occasionally, and like she had these things that you can like set up. It's not a tripod,
almost like a gobo kind of thing.
Yeah. So you have that, and then I draped some, not moving blankets, but I'm forgetting the name, but the Vocal Booth to Go blankets.
Oh, yeah, the acoustic sheets or studio blankets.
Which are massively heavy and almost broke.
Yeah, for those who don't know, these blankets are like 20 to 40 pounds each. They're very heavy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I draped it over there, and I had to go in to the booth, and I had like my kids' like child plastic seat from IKEA, and and I was just sitting on it, and I would have to sit on it very quietly. If I moved around like my legs or anything, then you'd hear like that. And so I would start out just like in a little tent, and then I graduated from that to finding this structure on Amazon where I could make it so that it was like 6.5 feet up. It was almost like an elevator. And when I could stretch like my arms all the way out, but still with the Vocal Booth to Go blankets. And so I would keep on upgrading. And then about a year and a half ago, I made this purchase because we moved into a new house, and I didn't have any more space that would separate me from my family. Because before I was separated by like a floor or a bunch of rooms. Now I'm catty corner from my bedroom. So, doing death screams or anything that would make me feel like, oh man, I don't know if I feel comfortable with hearing people hear that, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I made the investment, and it's I love this thing. It's made a world of difference.
That's great. You just reminded me of my like early non-ergonomic booth days, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's a good experience. It humbles you, but it's my back and neck thank me now. But anyways, So one of the reasons you approached us to do this interview is because you have a really unique story, and I think it's really interesting because very often when people come to approach us at Global Voice Acting Academy for VO training, many of them do have aspirations for like Disney Pixar, animation, AAA video games, character stuff. And so we try to temper people's expectations, be like, yes, this is great, this can be an aspirational goal, but we also want people to have a bit of a practical approach and, say, have something like commercial or corporate narration in their wheelhouse, so they at least have some kind of viable avenue to build an income, to reinvest in the career, and pursue their goals. So your tale is interesting because you did specify, you were very narrow in your focus with commercial, corporate narration, but you noticed that you, in your own words, felt a little hamstrung. And so I'd love to hear how you kind of broke the mold in that area and kind of started with these, what we'll call them straight-laced genres or less actor-y genres into the more character-based ones.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, and I'll be very honest, and it might be a lot of people may not want to hear or may shun it, but my aspirations weren't the, I want to get into to animation or anime, from the beginning, because I was really looking to make some extra income. Boo, boo, hiss, hiss. That's a lot of people hear that and they go, oh, well, he's just in it for the money. I'm trying to be a realist about it, and I really wanted it to be a career. Yes, I still was a kid who would, fold up little cardboard things and like make action figures out of them and name them stuff and use, different voices to do that. I was someone who looked at the stage, looked at the theater and said, I want to do that, but I also think it's a little weird and I don't want to get beat up. And I don't say that to say that, I'm not ragging on anyone who is in theater, but I was faking it to myself because I was that weird kid. I did love anime. I was watching, Toonami back in the 2000s and really digging it. But, it was a part of me that I just buttoned up and didn't let out.
Maybe that pragmatic side we were talking about, just like if it's like it can
Absolutely.
seem impossible. So it's like it's better to just be like, well, let's put that on the shelf and like leave that for the people who are already doing it. But
Exactly.
But that wasn't always the case.
Right. So, I went with the things that I thought would be best with my background. So I was in marketing. I had already stood up in front of folks and let them know about things that could help benefit them in a way that, doesn't talk down to them. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of like e-learning. That's kind of like an explainer, with various degrees of energy. And so I had also, visited the GVAA website and, came up with a business plan based on, these estimates. Nothing can ever be for sure. Nothing can ever be for certain. You can't guarantee how much you're going to make at all. Clearly, I mean, you've seen the NAVA. They have come out with the results of their survey, which show how much folks are making in the voiceover industry based on maybe like over 1,000 people. And you can see how many folks are making 0 to 5,000 a year. That's if that's the only thing you do, that's poverty.
Yeah.
So
you're absolutely right. Many people are doing it part-time or doing 2 or 3 other jobs in addition to that, or maybe they're reliant on spouse for that income. So yeah, it's definitely easy to look at those numbers and be like, okay, like I need to be smart about this.
Right. And so even before that was a thing, this survey, I would listen to podcasts. I would, take into consideration how much something could make, what it takes to, to have a certain amount of clientele, how often they may contact you. And I came up with a business plan, a 5-year business plan for it. Actually, I have to change that business plan because it's been 5 years since I came up with that business plan. And so that's why I decided instead of, animation and also because I didn't have the talent for it because I wasn't doing theater or, I didn't have a traditional acting background. It's the reason why I started with commercial and corporate narration and e-learning. But thankfully, I had people who I had met with online back when I was, in 2019 when I was still, learning the craft for the first time, who said, yeah, that all sounds really good, but you're going to stay grounded if you don't, get a little bit outside yourself. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is how it's a conversational read, blah, 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 but it was still, I wasn't getting, shortlisted for things that had any nuance. It was hard for me to get outside of a particular type of read, and it was limiting, and I found it to be limiting. But thankfully, in this group of 9 voice actors that we have, me included, there's one individual, a couple of individuals who come up with these original projects, and we've turned them into audio plays that they're on Spotify. We do stuff from like fantasy and sci-fi. There's a sci-fi sitcom one that we're doing right now. We play like a bunch of different characters, from someone who is a superhero to a half frog, half prince to an angelic demon with a god complex. And it stretched me to the point where now, I can see, or I can take, commercial copy and now give myself way more options than I had before.
Mm-hmm. No, that sounds like a wonderful experience. And like, I'm a huge fan of, if you've never done like, say, community theater or like acted in a play, audio dramas are fantastic because you're collaborating with fellow actors. You can feed off of each other. You can get, like, as you mentioned, if you're someone who struggles to kind of flex that imagination muscle during your auditions, you're like, oh, this reminds me, what would so-and-so do in this situation? Like, what you start to be able to imagine the things around your lines, like what's actually happening, visualizing things more. And again, like, there's that playful competition that can happen where it's like, I'm going to make so-and-so laugh, or like, oh, they went really big, I'm going to go even bigger, kind of things like that. So that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear about that. Or can we listen to this stuff?
Well, you can listen to it on Spotify. It's called Talk Story to Me. I promise it's not innuendo.
It's on Spotify. They have some kind of regulations for adult content, but
yes, but yeah, it's called Talk Story to Me. And there's like a whole series called Triumphant, which is this saga of superheroes that are trying to stop the ultimate evil. If you like that kind of stuff, then it's right up your alley. We're working on right now a sci-fi sitcom, which it's more so about the relationships between the people in this one tiny apartment than it is about, like, you don't ever see the superhero girlfriend of the AI intern go out and actually defeat evildoers. It's more about how the intern is like, well, what you do is actually volunteer work, so you don't even actually contribute to the rent. And then it's a toxic relationship, and they get into it, and they're like, well, you're an intern, you technically don't get paid either. And it's like, oh, what are you talking about? So it's all of these things that, by the way, like I had said before, I originally got into this into VO in general, because I wanted to have a career. I wanted to make an income from it. All of this stuff to build my acting muscle is free. We're not getting paid to do any of this theater work. This is all enrichment. It's all play. And it's something that I had to really learn how to do again, because the playfulness, the silliness, it's something, like I had mentioned, I had buttoned up and left on the shelf. But now I feel comfortable making, wackadoodle faces, and, so much so that the first time I did it, the next morning, my jaw was sore. Like I had literally worked a muscle. Like I was like, why do I feel like this? Like I just had a workout. It's because I was contorting my face in ways that I hadn't done before.
It's funny. I recently taught a workshop in Seattle, and I was working with, it was like a mix of men and women. And I was just like, guys, you might notice when we do these smiling stretches, your face is going to be really tight because guys don't get to smile often in our society.
How true. Yeah.
But that's so cool. And you brought up a good point, too, because first off, the fact that you're trying to make money at this, like, it can sound greedy on one side, but I think from the very beginning, you're approaching this as a business. And the overall goal of a business is to be profitable. So, like, the fact is, like, I mean, I'm really impressed with how much you've set yourself up for success with your foresight and your goals, right? Like, your clear and conscious goals. But, and one other thing that I'm happy you mentioned is the unpaid work that we do. Because a lot of people, like, who approach this will say from the true negative side of that coin, which is like, I want to make money and I want to make it now. That's the problem, is because that's outside of your control. And even
Yeah.
if you do everything right, if you work with the best coaches, if you train your butt off for a year or two and then got all of the professional materials and all that stuff, you might not be what the market is looking for. Right?
Yeah.
So Ryan Cranston said it best, but it's like you can do everything right, but there are no guarantees. And it's just people need to understand that. So it's important to have a plan, but also be willing to do, like, you're going to be doing a lot of unpaid work as you train, as you expand your craft. Like you said, you're going to invest in a home studio or professional equipment, whatever that looks like to you. And it might be it could be a year or two or longer before you really start to return on that investment. So hopefully people who hear that, who have this idea that, like, I just need a USB mic and I can be off to the races, that will temper their expectations or maybe get them to pursue something else.
Yeah. And I mean, year zero was negative $3,000, which, by the way, I mean, that was me saving. That was me, like, trying to find deals on things, trying to get the bare minimum without, getting a USB mic or things that I didn't think would propel me in the right direction. I got the Rode NT1 for cheap. I was able to get the Vocal Booth To Go blankets. And then, some other things that were discounted because I got it around November. This was around Black Friday, So again, year zero, negative, just period. Year one, a little bit of a profit, but not much. It was really just learning. And another point is, I know that there is a contingent or a thought process where, it's like, well, you don't want to be taken advantage of, right? You don't want to do work for free because, or be paid less for it. This is why we have things like the rate guide, the GVAA rate guide, so that you can see what you should be paid for. But there's also a difference between that and play and practice, because this is a group of friends that I'm talking about. This is us, having fun. This is the sandbox. This is a jog in the park, not the actual marathon itself, or the sprint, not the actual competition. So doing this is building the muscle and training the mind to have fun. So if Casting Call Club or Reddit or something like that, or Twitter, is your playground, then that's your playground. But also understand, like, know what it is, know that that's what it's for. For some things, right? Certainly there are things you can get on Twitter where, they do have pretty good rates, on things. It may be a little rare, but they're there. But know that free work, is going to be what it is. Now, I'm not speaking on commercials or anything like that. I'm just talking about
and I'd love to elaborate too, like, because I mean, like, unpaid work, people are like, no, don't work for free. And that's not what I mean. What I mean is what we might call the invisible work, right? The things that make you the great talent that you are that no one sees, right? Your personal training, workout groups. And something like what you described is excellent because there's a lot less pressure to perform well when the stakes are low, when people aren't, like, when it's just for fun or when it's just for personal improvement, things like that. And that's when you can get comfortable making big choices. And if you make everyone laugh, then they all get in, like, everyone gets happy and encouraging about that, right? So I think that's important. And if you look at any actor's career, they're going to do, like, they'll do projects for free if it's something that they believe in or it's something that they find creatively inspiring, right? So, and those might lead to paid projects. This is the stuff we mean where it's like, be willing to do these things because it's not always about profit, right? Maybe it's a new connection. Maybe it's exploring a new skill. There are other benefits here, but don't let yourself be taken advantage of. If it's a project that you're like, we should be getting, all the actors should get $500 for this animated project, at least, right? Like, as long as there's no question of exploitation, right? As long as everyone is clear with what the project is, if there's compensation or not, right? Everyone's receiving it, like, it's all equal, right? So again, approach each project with a purpose and understand that, maybe you're not, or some things, it's not always about money, right? It might lead to other things. But also, if you're in that playground of places like Casting Call Club, some of the other projects, you need to understand what the playing field is like. What are their expectations, right? Are they comfortable if you don't have a home studio? They expect you, like even for some of these, we'll say low intermediate projects, they still might require professional demos, for example. Like they might not even have an audition. They might ask you to just submit a demo, right? So that might be something you need anyways. So, but you can start with the free unpaid stuff and then work your way up to more high-profile projects as you become more comfortable and confident and as you acquire those professional materials.
Yes, and just one more thing I'll say on that. Full disclosure, from the beginning of my career up until right now today, I have a day job. So like you said, there's no pressure when you're with a friend group or with lower projects that don't have a lot of pressure, low pressure stuff. It also helps when you have steady income coming in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so nothing comes from desperation. Everything is play. Everything is fun. There's no need like, I need this. There's none of that, because the more you need it, the more, casting directors are like, oh, I don't know.
That anxiety will come across in your read.
Absolutely, and just all that stress, it's not good. So, approaching stuff from just, oh, this is fun, and playing, and you find out new ways to stretch your voice. I'm a baritone, but I can get up higher than I thought that I could, because we played around with it, and I actually used something that I had done through play with this cadre of actors who we're friends with, in a paid gig. I reached up into my nose and went,
Everyone's got a Skeletor voice in them.
Everyone, yes, everyone's got a Skeletor. But yeah, whatever you will play with, whatever you do in practice it happens in the game. That's what happens in sports. It's what happens in voiceover.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about some of your fun character projects and how that began to inform some of what I called your straight-lace projects. So what were some fun character projects you'd like to share?
Oh, so like I had mentioned, Talk Story to me, it's a creation of a guy named Josh Evans, and he has made all of these fascinating universes that may meld into each other. I'm not sure. I don't know his secrets. He'll probably let us know later on. But one role was I'm trying to think. It was like a demon angel kind of person who, he was a bit fanciful, but also he was bored and
kind of aloof.
Aloof, almost like a Lord of the Rings elf who's seen everything. I wish I could just travel to the west. This Middle Earth is so boring, but he had this kind of, devilish side to him where, he hated the mortals that, the gods favored. How dare they? And now they were doing magic, which is something that is, this is not for them. This is for us, for the divine.
Brings them closer to divinity.
Absolutely. So, I took this kind of voice and made it into Kang the Conqueror for Marvel HQ. At first, I had approached it that way, and they were like, it's a little bit too... make it more down to earth, not up here, but more like this. And so I made him a little bit more mustache twirly, and
no, that's great.
I'm Kang the Conqueror. For kids. And so he's mustache twirly now. He's in the series where he's he introduces the episodes of the Avengers. So you see him for like a few minutes, and he starts rambling off about how he's so much better than the Avengers, and look at them, they're so terrible, I'll send these people to go and defeat them. And then at the very end, the Avengers defeat whoever, and he goes, oh, how terrible, I could have done so much better, So yeah, that's how that kind of informed.
That's so cool. I love so many things about that. I mean, as someone like a self-proclaimed non-character actor, I love that you established a template from a previous project and you worked with a director to tweak it and gave it a little bit or a lot more personality, a very different one from the original template. And I love the consideration and the analysis. Like, well, this is for kids, so let's make him less villainous, more funny, you know? And so you're already showing all these great things that are informing your other work. So let's talk about how we use that to kind of explore some of the work you're already doing, like your commercial work.
So I'm still learning. Aren't we all? I had a one-on-one with Mary Lynn Wisner, and every time I have a coaching session, I always go, oh man, there's so little I know. Why am I doing it that way? I should have been doing it this way. And what I was doing was, I would maybe give a little bit of pre-life to the copy, maybe a huh or a really or something like that. But I didn't go beyond that first second, and the ad-libbing was still very limited. But she encouraged me to, really think about what's going on in this scenario. And so now, I'm using techniques that I do in character work, which again, I feel like it's so recent, where I'm bringing more pre-life to it, to make it so much different. So if it's, I don't know, a commercial about toilet paper, then, maybe someone had an accident or something like that. And you go, oh man, I'm so sorry. Maybe you should use this one because it's actually, thicker. That's one way to think about it. Yeah. Or maybe if the scenario was, oh man, I forgot to to change the toilet roll again. I'm sorry, honey. Here it is in I don't know. It brings a different flavor to it. Toilet paper flavor. Let's not go too far into it.
Maybe let's mix the senses in that way. But
it's bringing pre-life to it.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot. This idea of pre-life or the moment before, and it's kind of what I was talking about before. It's like what this theater of the mind allows you to do is to kind of connect all the dots and to kind of realize what the final vision might be. Mm-hmm. Right. So very often as actors, we can be egocentric sometimes. I know I've been that actor that was just paying attention to my lines and not everyone else's.
No, not me, not you. No.
Let me No, there's a great Harley Quinn quote from Clayface on the DC Max show. He's like, let me let you in on a little secret people outside the entertainment industry don't know. All actors are vain. But anyways, it just gives you more, it allows you to give the caster more than they're asking for. So they don't have to ask questions about your ability. You've shown them.
And it's in listening to so many podcasts and in hearing so many amazing coaches, talk about the script. You do hear a lot of people say, they wrote the script for a reason, honor the script. And I get that, but I hear so many more coaches, and, I don't want to, this is my opinion. And I know it can differ between, whether you're recording for a video or auditioning for a video game or something like that. But yes, honor the script, but fill in the holes that, are present there. Mm-hmm. Every time I've booked something, it's because I've given some sort of ad lib at the beginning or, maybe even in the middle, somewhere between the commas or ellipses, and maybe at the end. Yes, it's, honor the idea. The copy is there, sure. But as long as it makes sense, then I think you're getting it right. And it's true for character. It's a truth for character for me. And I've had to make it true for commercial as well, because too often I had treated it too preciously, Mm-hmm. And it's limiting. And then what ends up happening? You just sound like everybody else, you know?
Absolutely. No, I think it's a fabulous exercise. And I love this idea. I like to tell people when it comes to scripts, you don't want to edit, you don't want to subtract, but you can give them more, right? You want to add to it. You want to add some personality, your personality. And like you said, you can do nonverbals, you can ad lib like additional conversation. So there's more clarity about who you're talking to or about, or what the action of the scene is. All brilliant, brilliant stuff. Well, I know you have to leave soon, so we're going to try and wrap this up. So what, like you've already given some great advice and some great examples of how to sort of the mindset and the steps to take for this. Do you have any explicit advice that you'd like to tell people who are just getting into VO now?
Ooh, explicit advice.
Or maybe one thing, or maybe one thing that you wish you had told yourself or had learned earlier on.
I wish earlier on. I wish earlier on that I had made myself more open to the things that I was uncomfortable with. And in my case, it was character work. It was, analyzing character situations for whether it's video game or animation, and just really going there because my thought was it doesn't make sense for me to get into animation because I don't have the background, and also the bar is exceptionally high. I've seen the Mario movie a million times because my 4-year-old loves it. And the one of the first characters you see, aside from Bowser, is the Penguin, the King Penguin, right? Who is a masterful voice actor who's been in a million things, including, The Walking Dead. And his role is so small, Even the most masterful, brilliant voice actors in the voice acting world, you have to be up here to be able to get a tiny role, in a movie that's going to have Chris Pratt.
No, I know. I have to tell people that how do you feel about insert celebrity here being in a voice acting movie when people like Maurice LaMarche and Bob Bergen and Kevin Michael Richardson, which were all in the Mario movie, by the way, and it's so funny because people are like, they just don't understand how the industry works. People have been using celebrities to get butts in seats since the time of radio, right? So it's nothing new. And very often the voice actors, we're utility players. We're not the leading roles. We help populate the world, right? Because it's cheaper to have someone do 3, 6, 12 voices than it would be to cast individuals for all those roles. But if you talk to people like Bob Bergen and Maurice LaMarche and Dave Fennoy or Kevin Michael Richardson, do they have an ego about it? Do they have an axe to grind? No, they're happy for the work.
Right. And, and that's not to say that the work they do isn't brilliant. And that's not to say that the celebrities aren't brilliant as well. I love Jack Black as Bowser. I thought
Charlie
really
Day was the unsung hero of that film. Like, his Luigi was hilarious.
Yeah, he was really good. But I say that, the bar is so high for animation. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? The return on investment, it's going to take too long. I'm not going to, monetarily, it's not going to make sense. Why would I ever do it? I wish that earlier on, I took a more flexible approach to that and said, well, don't worry about the money aspect of it. It's about what it can do for everything else, such as, commercial or actually, well, it I say that, but it does help commercial reads, which does, make more money.
I was going to say, you kind of implied that if that is an upper echelon of skill and talent, then anything that might fall beneath that would be easy by comparison. Right? Or,
Yes.
or I should say that level of skill will inform all of the genres beneath it.
Absolutely. So, if you train to if you train to get to the point where if you have like a fraction of the acting ability, a tiny smidgen of the acting ability to be able to be competent in an animated piece, and it gives you so much more color to work with, to paint with, for things that traditionally, you don't need to be super extra and go all out there for a toothpaste commercial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. It's all about considering every individual project. So, Andrew, it has been so great catching up with you, man. I mean, we've been talking to each other online and offline, and I got to see you at VO Atlanta last year, which was awesome. But It's just been great, checking in with you, and I'm just so proud and impressed with your progress over the last few years. It's really admirable.
Well, thanks for having me on. Thank you for providing this podcast. I mean, you guys are in so many ways the unsung heroes of the voiceover industry. You are the news that we need so that we know what's going on. You give us so much perspective. Like I said, you guys are salt of the earth folk where, it makes it seem achievable as long as you do the things that, as long as you put in the work and, when it comes to questionable gear purchases, just don't do what Sean.
That's the whole point. It's just that's Schadenfreude for your benefit. But
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for the praise. That really means a lot. And it's why we keep doing it. I'm so glad it's helpful. And because like I said, we can't guarantee anyone's success, but we can kind of give you a roadmap, that what's worked for us and what's worked for others. And then hopefully you'll take what you've heard from the podcast I got to say, Andrew's a bit of a poster child here. I love his attitude. I love his planning, his conscious goal setting. It's really, really useful for anyone pursuing VO. Listen to this interview a couple of times. But,
oh, shucks.
But lastly, Andrew, how can people hire you if you want to work with you as a voice talent?
You can go to my website at andrewlandervo.com. And, on socials, if you want to see what stuff I'm doing with my kids' baseball or swimming or other random things that I'm doing, you can find me on Instagram, also at andrewlandervo. I'm on Twitter at Andrew Lander. I was able to catch that one before the other Andrew Lander took it.
Good.
And then I haven't posted on TikTok in a while. Used that as a playground for a bit and then stopped using it. But if you want to see all the other crazy antics that I was up to back then, I'm also on there at Andrew Lander VO.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast, Andrew. It's great to see you and great to hear your progress.
Yeah, Sean, thanks again so much. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, Paul, did you know Voice123, the largest online marketplace for voice actors, just celebrated its 20th year anniversary?
Whoa, really? That's amazing. Doesn't really surprise me, though. I've used Voice123 since the beginning of my career. I remember way back in my first year where I booked a job as a hypnotist. I actually got to say, "You are getting very sleepy," on a radio ad. The whole thing was super easy. They even paid me right away for the audition and said that was all they needed.
I've been a member of Voice123 for years as well. I've always enjoyed their upfront policies, ability to contact clients directly, and their commitment to the voiceover industry.
Totally. CEO Rolf Veldman has appeared on the show before, and in every interaction I've had with him and the company, I felt a sense of trust, like they really care.
Well, if you want a great place to find your VO niche and find yourself as a voice actor, visit voice123.com for more information.
Now, VO Meter listeners can also get 15% off premium tier memberships. For more information, visit our website and click on the Click Here to Save 15% banner on our sponsors page.
Voice123. Speak for yourself.
All right, thank you to Andrew for joining us on the show, and thanks again to Sean for flying solo. I did hear Andrew compliment me at least once, so I'm satisfied. It was mostly a love fest for Sean, but
you were very generous with your feedback, man. I'm just so happy that I've been helpful, and I'm just so proud and impressed with his progress. I'm really happy that he used our podcast as a platform to educate people on how to maybe enjoy some of the success that he has found for himself.
Yeah, I'm very happy for him as well. There's only a few people who piss me off when they do well. He's not one.
Only a few that I wish the plague on, but I don't know.
I kid, mostly.
But
no, I'm so happy for Andrew and his success, and here's to continued success.
Indeed. Well, that wraps up this episode of the VO Meter.
Measuring your voiceover progress. Coming up, actually tomorrow, as we're recording this, we're recording interview tomorrow with Fanny Brault-Raybeau from Seven Holdings Media. They are a dubbing company that reached out to me about being on the podcast, and I said, yes, I would love to speak to you about that. So we'll be talking to Fanny tomorrow, and we'll have that for you in the coming weeks.
Thanks for listening. You'll hear us in the next one. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of the VO Meter. To follow along, visit us at www.vometer.com.
We'd also love to hear your comments or suggestions for the show. Or if you have a questionable gear purchase, tell us all about it on our Facebook page or on Twitter at the VO Meter.